joining. So today we'll be learning how to complete a sentiment analysis. So just before we jump into that, I wanted to also go through the land acknowledgement and also let you know that captions are available as well. So with the land acknowledgement, as we're joining from remotely at our homes, we do want to acknowledge that OCAD University and the We Count project acknowledges the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we stand and create. So jumping into the workshop, so I just wanted to go over the goals of the sentiment analysis workshop and what we're aiming to achieve through this. So first off, with you joining, you can learn how to conduct a sentiment analysis. And with this, you're going to be able to learn new skills and the tools required in order to really be a part of the data ecosystem. And secondly, as well, through the sentiment analysis workshop, you'll be able to work with us and learn how to create a data set that represents a concern of the disability community. So today, that issue that we're going to be exploring through the sentiment analysis is Bill C7, the main bill. And so with this, you'll learn as you go throughout this workshop and really be able to learn this new tool and be able to take this knowledge to, for example, build your own data set and apply these skills towards your own data goals and needs. So next, I'm just going to go through and do an overview of what is a sentiment analysis. So what is this actually? So it's an automated process that analyzes text, and it's able to determine the emotions that are expressed in the text. So this can be positive, neutral, or negative. More advanced sentiment models are even able to identify emotions like surprise, shyness, and things like that as well. So what is the purpose of the sentiment analysis? So by using this tool, it allows us to identify the emotions, tone, and attitude that is expressed in text. And with this, we can also understand and interpret public opinion. And this is important because, like, through when we have larger data sets, it makes it more efficient as well as consistent to analyze these data sets. Of course, there are biases as well. So using the sentiment analysis tool, although it can be considered more consistent because you're using the same model, if there's a bias present in this model, then it will carry out throughout the entire data set and analyze it in a certain way. So that's something also to look out for. Where there are pros, there can also be cons as well. So the use cases of sentiment analysis. So the sentiment analysis can be used in a variety of different contexts. So that can be for customer feedback and product reviews. So for example, an organization, they can have thousands and thousands of customer reviews from like a survey, for example, or product reviews on a product, let's say on Amazon. So they want to determine the public opinion and what are customers favoring or not liking about their experience or their product that they're using. So the sentiment analysis allows them to take these thousands of reviews and be able to efficiently analyze them. And another use case is social monitoring as well. So being able to monitor like a brand's social page, so Facebook posts, comments, and Twitter tweets on Twitter. So being able to understand how your users are interacting with your content and how they feel about your brand, which is really important. And lastly as well would be to understand public opinion on key issues like MAID. So today we're going to be using MAID as a case study to understand the public opinion around this bill and how this has affected the development of this policy. So in this image here, you can see on the right, I've also included an example of what the outcome of a sentiment analysis can be. So this is just a pure example. It's not actually based on real data or anything like that. So at the top, it shows a theme that was extracted from the sentiment analysis and interpreted, which is staff. And within this theme of staff, they're able to identify. So for example, in the reviews, there were certain themes that had stuck out. So for example, you can see a sub-theme was unhelpful crew, and then it includes text from reviews, and another sub-theme is friendly crew. So this is just themes that are really important to help kind of identify where a business, for example, would need to improve and invest more resources into. And then at the bottom there of this image, there's a second theme, and this is a separate theme, and that is a product review, so bassinet. And then it shows sub-themes of what in the customer reviews, what they're talking about. So for example, commenting on features of the product, like it's a clean baby cot or it's a small baby cot. So this is really important for organization to have these insights. So next, I'm going to show another example of this US airline example. So this is a really great visualization. It basically takes the sentiment analysis results, and they're able to compile the results into this visualization, and it uses a combination of bar charts, line charts, word clouds, and pie charts to compile this data. So what the sentiment analysis did is that it analyzed the travelers' tweets in the period of February 2015. And it was able to take these tweets and analyze them and be able to identify problems that travelers were having with each major US airline. So with this analysis, a human analyst and an AI algorithm was also used, which is interesting because it helps to increase the accuracy of the analysis. And so in this example, it shows how many tweets from users are positive, neutral, and negative, which you can see in a bar chart in the top left. So it breaks down the airlines in the y-axis, and then the number of tweets in the x-axis, as well as the sentiment. So is there negative tweets here about the airline? Are there neutral tweets, or are the tweets positive? So are travelers, what do they think about the airline? And then in the middle here, we also have reasons for the negative sentiment. So that could be customer service or late flight as a reason that travelers might have negative sentiment towards an airline in their tweet. And then another interesting example in this visualization is the line graph at the bottom left that shows the sentiment over time. So it shows the volume of tweets and where the sentiment has gone over time. Like, has it gone neutral, negative, positive? So this is interesting to see what the trends are within travelers. So yeah, this is just a really great example showing how you can use like line graphs and bar charts to visualize and present this data. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the next slide. So for our sentiment analysis that we're going to complete, we're going to be using a case study for Bill C7 made. So you might be wondering, what can a sentiment analysis do within this context? So within this context of Bill C7, we can use the sentiment analysis to be able to identify if and how media and public opinion has been affected by key main events. So, for example, after a key event in Bill C7, for example, like it was presented in the House of Commons, for example, or high-profile case, has this level of agreement with Bill C7, has it shifted over time? So, for example, being able to analyze the articles and see how it's reported in media, in contrast to the key events. And this is able to indicate to us if this event has impacted public opinion. And secondly, is that a sentiment analysis can help enable evidence-based decision-making. So with policies like Bill C7, often public opinion reviews are used to determine decisions within these policies. So public opinion does need to be carefully reviewed, as this can be swayed by media sources, and biases can also be present in public opinion as well, and it can be manipulated intentionally or not intentionally. So with that, it's really important for sentiment analysis to be able to enable this evidence-based decision making. And as well as that, with the public opinion review, certain groups can be excluded from this review and not be able to contribute their lived experience, for example. So how do sentiment analysis tools actually work? So sentiment analysis tools, they can use simpler models like a dictionary or rule-based model. And so this is where it's more manual and you are able to enter words and you enter these words into your dictionary model and you're able to assign each individual word negative and positive values. So then the sentiment analysis can use this to analyze whatever body of text and assign those words that you've inputted into your dictionary model and assign a value to the text. And so with the simpler models, they're often also used in combination with more advanced data-driven text analysis tools that use machine learning and natural language processing techniques. So with the more data-driven tools, they use a training data set that's used to train the algorithm. And the quality of the sentiment analysis tool, it's heavily reliant on the training data set and the algorithm, as this impacts the accuracy of the results. So overall, the machine learning and natural language processing techniques, they allow the text to be transformed and structured so that it can be processed by a machine learning algorithm to extract valuable insights and opinions from the text. So for example, I've included these 3 points here below that show kind of how a machine learning algorithm is able to analyze these sentiments. So for example, there's simple statements like, I like going to school. So an algorithm, it'll be able to recognize the positive word, which is like in this situation, and then negation as well. So being able to determine the difference between this food is great and this food is not great, and being able to take that with the negation of not. And then modifiers as well. So with language, we often use words of emphasis. So for example, I really, really love this workshop. An algorithm would be able to detect the emphasis in the text there and be able to identify it as positive. So next is the take-home activity walkthrough for the article sentiment analysis. So I'm just going to walk through the process of the take-home activity and how you're going to be able to complete that. So I'm just going to do a quick walkthrough of that. So after this session, well, firstly, I'm going to be walking through this now, but I'll just do a quick walkthrough here. So after this session, the facilitators will be sending an email out to you with the setup details required, as well as your assigned 5 articles that you'll be analyzing and conducting a sentiment analysis on. And then you'll also receive a take-home activity, which will be provide you the steps that you need to complete this as well. And so once you receive that, you're able to start the take-home activity, and that will involve inputting each article into Meaning Cloud sentiment analysis tool. And then after you're able to input the article into the sentiment analysis tool, you'll copy this output and you'll paste this into Microsoft Excel and be able to clean the data. So now I'm going to walk you through this process and how to complete the take-home activity. So let me just change my screen, but I'm just having some issues with that right now. Okay, so yeah, I'll just jump into it. So you'll be assigned 5 articles to conduct the sentiment analysis with. So you'll have to create an account on Meeting Cloud, and we do have a setup document that provides instructions on how to do this. So given that you've created your account, we can now start and walk through the sentiment analysis. So you'll go to, I'll just start from the very beginning. So you'll go to the login section, and then you'll just click sign in with Meeting Cloud. And so I have my login details there already, so I'll just click login. So you'll be redirected here to the home page, and you'll also need to have your API key. So this is required to use the tool. So you can find this right here under use your license key. So you can just click this, you can find it here. So this is my license key. So I'm just going to copy this. So you can just select it and copy it, or you can click this button and it automatically copies it for you. And then you'll want to go to APIs. And then under APIs, this just shows Meeting Cloud's tools. They do have a number of tools, so you're free to explore them if you want. It's quite interesting. And so under sentiment analysis here, you will click test. And also, just so you know as well, under test, you'll find this menu bar. So this kind of provides like the documentation around what a sentiment analysis is, and allow you to kind of understand each field of the test console, which is where you'll enter the input, as well as the response. You'll like the output of the results. You can understand like each parameter used. So this would be interesting and helpful for you to read through as well. So now that we're in the test console, this is where we'll actually be putting the information from the article text, so that Meeting Cloud's tool can perform the sentiment analysis. So under connection here in the key fields, I'll paste the API key that I had just copied earlier. And then after that, under content and language, I'm going to set the language to English and the interface language as well. And so here we have the text. So there's 2 ways to do this. I'm going to show you the more efficient way to do it. So with your article, we'll provide you the article URL. So there's one thing you could, so this is the more inefficient way, but I'm just going to show you so you don't do this. So you would paste the URL here, but the issue with just pasting the plain URL is that it also grabs like all of the text on the page, like from the menu bar, etc. That isn't really relevant to the analysis. So I wouldn't recommend doing this because you'll just end up having to clean the data more and remove the irrelevant text. So I would just recommend instead going to the article URL. And then now that you're at the article URL, you can then copy all of the relevant text that's relevant to the analysis. So with that could be the relevant text. So that could be the title of the article, the subtitle, which is here, as well as the actual body of text. So this would be considered here. And this is also the body of text. And I don't see a photo caption here, but if there are photo captions or like quotes in the article, that's also really important to include as well. So now I'm just going to copy this text here, so this title and subtitle, and start to input this into the test console. And ideally, the input would also be entered in order as well. So there's that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and copy the rest of the body copy of the article and enter it into the text box field here in Meeting Cloud. Okay. Yeah, so I'm only copying like parts of the article at a time, just because there's like boxes like here, which I don't need this information, so I'm just going to skip over this. Okay, so that looks like that's everything. All of the relevant content in the article that should be analyzed. So this is essentially the article that I had copied over and pasted into the text box field. So now that I'm completed that and entered the article content text there, I'm going to fill in the rest of the parameters that we're going to use. So under operating parameters, relaxed typography, I'm going to select for all resources. And then you can leave the rest of the fields as is. And then you can click formatted when you're complete with the test console. So yeah, clicking formatted will give you a formatted table result. I'll show you what raw gives, just if you're curious. So it gives you the raw result, so not in a formatted table and just like the plain code and output. So yeah, we'll just use the formatted to keep it simpler and more clean. And so these are the results, and basically what the results are is that it takes the text from the article, and so this is the text that's analyzed for each row right here. So I'll just take an example here. And so it takes this text and it analyzes it to see if it expresses a positive, negative, or neutral sentiment, and it places the sentiment here in the score tag. And they also refer to this as the polarity as well. If you're reading through the documentation, they'll often use that term. And then also assign a agreement or disagreement and confidence level of the analysis. And the level is also important to note as well, because it basically indicates if it's a sentence or a fragment. So it will take parts of a sentence and analyze parts of a sentence. And then as well, we'll take the overall sentence sentiment as well. So for that, so essentially this is the results you'll get. And so what you're going to do is you're going to copy and paste these results. So I'll just, starting from the bottom, the top doesn't matter, either or. So you're just going to select the entire results of the table. And you're going to copy the entire table. So, okay, I'm going to open Excel. Okay, I'll have to reshare my screen because I realized Excel isn't there. Okay, so now that we have Excel open, I'm going to paste the results from Meeting Cloud that we just copied over. So Yes, so these are the results from Meaning Cloud. So I'm just going to fix this so it's a bit easier to read. Yes, so basically for this document, ideally you're going to want to do this for each article and paste these results for each article in a new sheet. So I'm going to take the title of this article and just copy it and then just add it there because we'll be doing 5 articles. So just to keep track of each result to organize it. So I'm just going to put that there, the title as the sheet name. And so these are the results of the Meaning Cloud analysis sentiment tool. So with this, there can be irrelevant text that isn't relevant to the sentiment analysis. So for example, you can see here in the first row, there is a text analyzed that was a hyphen, and it's not really relevant to our analysis. So like in cases like this, we should clean the data and remove this from the sentiment analysis. So what you can just do is just simply just like click on this, click on the row and delete it from the analysis. Yeah, so I had just touched on the cleaning of the data. So where there's, so I'll just show you that again. So yeah, so for example, when they pull in text that's not really relevant, you can just delete this as well because it doesn't really have meaning to our sentiment analysis. It's just a hyphen there, so it's just an error from their tool. And then also another thing as well is that looking at the results, like what do you notice about these results? So one thing and a limitation with the tool is that the tool is not always 100% accurate. It is based on Meaning Cloud's own model. So with that, the results, like you as a human might look at them and you might not agree with the score tag assigned, of course. So what you are able to do in that case as well for your articles is you're able to, if you see like you think there's an error in the score tag, you think it should be something else, then you can create a new column as well. And you can just call this column human check score tag. And then you can also, and then with this, you can reassign the sentences and segments within the analysis if you think there's inaccuracies. So with this, I would recommend to mainly focus on sentences rather than segments, just because segments are typically like parts of the sentence. So it might just be easier to check the overall sentences. So in that case, what you can do as well is you can add a filter on this by going to data, the data in the menu bar, and then locating the filter option and clicking filter. And another thing that I also love to do is just use the search option and then just enter filter, and it usually just shows up immediately, and you can just add that filter there without having to locate the feature. And then so you can use this filtering to filter only sentences. So if you want to see, you know, if the score tags of Meaning Cloud's tool is accurate or not, if you want to check this over yourself and reassign if necessary, you're able to do that here using this filter. So yeah, and with that, the participant assigned score tags, so in this column, and the actual results from Meaning Cloud, we can also use this to help identify and analyze the accuracy of the tool. And so where there may be biases or inaccuracies present in Meaning Cloud's model that they've used to conduct the sentiment analysis. So that's something that we can do as well after the articles are analyzed. So with this process, you would repeat these steps for each article, doing this for each individual article that you have, and then creating a new Excel worksheet. So like a new worksheet here within your workbook for each article, and then just renaming the title of the new worksheet to your article title. So that's essentially the process to conduct the sentiment analysis. So that is kind of an overview of the process of how to conduct the sentiment analysis for your articles, and we'll have a document outlining these steps as well in the take-home activity document that we'll send out after the session. And then just to kind of provide more information about how the tool actually works. So basically, what we just talked about was the table results, and in the table results, they analyze a sentence and they break down the sentence and they take fragments of the sentence and they're able to assign a score tag, which they call in Meaning Cloud's documentation a local polarity, and a level of agreement of each fragment within a sentence. So they take the relationship between each fragment in a sentence, and they also analyze and consider this as well, and they take the overall level of agreement and score tag of the fragments to determine the sentiment for the entire sentence. So the local polarity of the sentences in the text and the relationship between these sentences are also used to assess the global polarity, which is the overall sentiment of the entire text that was inputted to analyze. So that's kind of how it works. And then I also provided from the Meaning Cloud documentation. Here, let me just show you. So under documentation, under response, you'll be able to find the documentation of what the output means. So I've taken the score tag and agreement here and just laid it out in that slide for you, but you can also feel free to explore this and be able to kind of like read different parameters and things that you can use. So with that is the agreement. So in our table of results, it shows the agreement. And then it also shows the score tag, again, referred to as the polarity, and the different options that you have here that Gloria had so kindly pasted in the chat. So I've also left a link here for the documentation as well, if you want to go ahead and take a visit at that and a read through. Yeah, and so that kind of takes us to the end of the workshop and kind of next steps and looking onwards. So after this session, you'll receive an email from us, from WeCount, with the setup details to set up your Meaning Cloud account and the take-home activity as well. There'll be a document that shows the steps that I just brought you through right now. And then after receiving this email, you can complete the setup, create your account, and then you can also read through the take-home activity and start that on your own as well before session 2. And then session 2 will be a working session where you'll be able to work on the take-home activity with facilitators and also be able to ask any questions that you have as well. We'll be here to answer any questions, and session 2 is also optional. So if you find that you don't need additional support with the take-home activity or you don't have additional questions, you're free to bypass this if you'd like. And then after session 2, ideally you would have completed the take-home activity, and then you'll also submit these results to your facilitators and upload these files to our Teams drive. And So yeah, that brings us to the end of the workshop and kind of walkthrough of the take-home activity for the sentiment analysis.